it's me, Bussy, and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into the Snatch Game to answer some questions. Has season 14 of RuPaul's Drag Race brought upon us the death of Snatch Game? Like, what in HE double hockey sticks happened there? And more importantly, should we ever see Snatch Game again? We've got a lot to go over today, but regardless of where we end up, just remember, the winner is, who cares? But first, since you're here, I'm assuming that you like games. It's raid! It's raid time! No, not rave time. Raid time! You know, like Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of today's video. Go and scan the QR code in the corner of this video to start downloading Raid right now. And while you do that, let's talk about orcs. Hate them because they were created by the Dark Lord Siroth, or hate them because they have a thing against humans and their teeth definitely need a good brushing. But when it comes to battling, you gotta love them. Check out Robar, legendary attack champion, with skulls on his armor. Or how about Ultimate Gaelic, who's literally rocking a mohawk and a beard. Hi Bear Daddy. Plus orcs aren't all that bad. They did join Queen Eva of the Elves for a good reason, but you'll have to play through the Raid campaign to find out why. And when you're done soaking up Raid's delicious storyline, make sure to check out the dungeons. Whether you're raiding the Fire Knight's castle, the Spider's Den, or the Dragon's Lair, you'll have to strategize and use different combinations of champions to defeat them at each subsequent level. Oh, and pro tip, all new players that download Raid by clicking the link in the description of this video or scanning the QR code in the corner will get a free starter pack worth almost $30, including a free champion named Ina, 200k silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get in the game. And get in ASAP because you'll only find these special rewards in your inbox for the next 30 days. And once you're in, you can find me under the name Bussy Queen. Thanks Raid for sponsoring today's video. To start, let's go back to the beginning. Back to when the Earth, the Sun, and stars all aligned. Wait, too far. 2010 is good. Snatch Game was introduced in season 2 of RuPaul's Drag Race, where Tatiana's Britney Spears and Pandora Box's Carol Channing defined great performances in the genre, and it has since appeared on every season of RuPaul's Drag Race as a main challenge. At its roots, it parodies Match Game, a television competition show originally airing through the 60s and 70s where contestants tried to match answers given by celebrity panelists to silly fill-in-the-blank questions. Hey look, there's Betty White. Is it all making sense now? But Snatch Game is less about being a parody of the TV show Match Game, which was always silly and comedic in nature, and more so a challenge meant to test the parody improv and impersonation skills of the contestants of RuPaul's Drag Race. And since its debut, Snatch Game has been hailed as a fan favorite episode, with average IMDB user ratings of episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race containing the Snatch Game challenge often rating higher than the entire season's average episodic ratings. But more than being loved by fans, Snatch Game is also loved by the franchise and the queens who participate in it. The franchise gets to pocket intellectual property that they can reuse and remonetize for the rest of eternity, and the queens have an opportunity to give an unforgettable performance. Which brings me to my next point of why people love Snatch Game so much. It is often very good and very bad. But let's go ahead and break that down with some data, of which we'll be limiting the scope of our analysis today to the main US-based seasons. Including the most recent catastrophe of a Snatch Game in season 14, there have now been 13 total Snatch Games. They typically appear somewhere in the middle of the season, which translates to appearing in episodes 4 through 6 for the earlier ones, and now 7 or later in these newer, longer seasons. Which means by the time we roll around a Snatch Game, we have 8 to 10 contestants at most left, giving us plenty of opportunity for good and bad. And of course this next section is subjective, but I attempted to quantify how many queens in any given season we can expect to give great, just okay, and bad performances. And by my count, we can on average expect 2 truly great performances in any given Snatch Game, which is about 23% of the total number of queens participating in the Snatch Game. I count 3 seasons with 3 truly great Snatch Games, and 8 seasons with 2 truly great performances. But the most important piece of data that I've derived from my subjective opinion today is that over half of any given cast on average was straight up bad at Snatch Game. Like, really bad. Like, on average, Snatch Game has just always been a really bad challenge for drag queens entering this competition because it doesn't really test their ability to do drag at all. But I'd argue this is largely by design, or at least a happy accident the producers discovered very early on in the production of this series. The reality of half or more of any given cast being bad at Snatch Game, or even just okay, allows the producers an episode conveniently placed in the middle of this season to justifiably put almost almost any two queens left in the cast into the bottom. And this is perfect for closing story arcs mid-season and opening new ones, building lip-sync assassin narratives, or simply opening up the opportunity to eliminate a queen that they weren't happy with so far in the competition. And the reason all of this is possible is because in Snatch Game, what you see isn't always the truth. The Snatch Game that we see as viewers is a highly edited version of what occurred in the studio that day. It is, in my opinion, the challenge that provides the most warped perception of reality to the viewer. Because in other challenges, viewers can see if choreography is flubbed, lyrics for a verse are written badly, or if a queen's acting was straight up bad. And I'm not saying this show is rigged or trying to spin any wild conspiracy theories. I'm just saying that it is very much both reality TV and a competition. And Snatch Game is just one of those challenges that is never even attempted to be showcased as fair. We never see an equal number of responses given from each contestant, so we never truly understand the full breadth of a queen's performance in Snatch Game. Let's look at a quick example from season 11. Silky, the winner of this Snatch Game, had 5 speaking moments in the final edit, between answering questions directly given to her by Ru and chiming into other queens' responses. Plus, there's a more subtle way the producers can manipulate how you perceive Snatch Game. We also saw 2 confessionals inserted into this Snatch Game from Silky herself, and when you leave this Snatch Game, you feel like Silky absolutely dominated this challenge. And don't get me wrong, I think she was hilarious and did great. But showing Silky with 7 total speaking parts during this Snatch Game, confessionals included, is hardly a fair representation of what actually happened when you look and see that the other contestants got 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 speaking inclusions. The final edit of that Snatch Game is so important, more than it is for any other challenge, in justifying the judges' decisions for a given Snatch Game challenge episode. So to quickly recap this section of the video, queens doing bad in Snatch Game is not only a reality, but an expectation of the producers, which ultimately only helps the producers produce. But that does leave the question, why do fans consistently leave good reviews on episodes containing a challenge where half of the cast is expected to do bad and so much manipulation is possible? And I think the simple answer to this question is that the good performances are often very good, and the bad ones, as I said earlier, are often very bad. And the natural extreme between the good and the bad present in the cast's abilities amplified by that manipulation and editing ultimately feels really rewarding. We have a clear winner and a clear loser. And not only do fans like the dynamic of having the high highs with the low lows, but it's important to remember that having somebody completely bomb Snatch Game is just as good as having somebody do extremely well in the eyes of reality TV. Both types of performances are just as likely to get talked about on social media, and guess what? Rewatched years later. Just look at these Miss Mojo video compilations for Snatch Game performances. Top 10 best and top 10 worst. What ultimately matters is that these performances are unforgettable. And while we're here, let's go ahead and take a walk down memory lane and check out some of these unforgettable performances. On the laugh out loud side, we have Adore's Anna Nicole. Do you like my body? Or Chad Michaels' Cher. I don't know why they keep booking me for these chicken shit gigs. I'm a fucking Oscar winner. Bendela's Maggie Smith. Excuse me, we originated the language. And on the stomach curdling fetal position cringe side, we have Fifi O'Hara's Lady Gaga. Give it twirl, give it twirl, give it twirl. Or Aiden Zane's senile Patricia Quinn that was played so badly, Patricia Quinn sounded off on social media disapproving of the performance. And at the top of my most cringe Snatch Game performances, I think, is Alyssa Edwards' Katy Perry, who told RuPaul that she would never kiss a girl when she asked. The only queen, by the way, ever asked to hashtag RuPaulologize on Twitter to the celebrity they impersonated. And yes, that tweet is still up, and yes, I did just retweet it in anticipation of this video. Snatch Game is not only an important, pivotal moment in the show for the producers to dip their hand in and manipulate some storyline narratives, but also often a defining moment for a queen's career, which is what makes season 14 Snatch Game so terribly tragic. For the first time ever in a Snatch Game challenge, the judges put everybody into the bottom except Deja Skye, who was given the top winning placement for her portrayal of Lil Jon. Yeah! But why? Because it's not like we haven't seen overall bad Snatch Games before. Season 4's entire Snatch Game was notoriously messy. From Kenya passing out as Beyonce to Snooki smushing the entire lower half of the panel, it was a complete train wreck. But there were 2 stellar performances in that one, Sharon and Chad's. And it also borne one of the most important quotes, I think, of the entire Drag Race franchise from Latrice. The level of unprofessionalism? far too much. And I think an interesting statistic that backs up my feelings about good and bad Snatch games is that IMDB user reviews of Snatch Game episodes, where there are less completely rotted performances and more generally okay ones, are actually rated lower than the Snatch games where there are both really good and really bad performances. And herein lies the problem with season 14 Snatch Game. It reeked of mediocrity. The only remarkable performance across the entire cast, good or bad, was Deja's. Willow's Drew Barrymore was not enough of a caricature and was, in my opinion, too intellectual. Bosco's Gwyneth had props, but no delivery, on top of the fact that her and Willow kind of played the same type of character. And Jerry's Tammy Brown was weird enough, but one note. And George's Alana certainly was not Ilana, but you could tell she at least knew what she was talking about. These queens seemingly answered the questions that Rue was given with no surprises. And sure, the producers could have easily done a top and bottom edit of this Snatch Game, but there were no extreme lows to balance out the extreme high of Deja's performance. So instead of taking a boring L on this season's Snatch Game, I think the producers put their producer hats on and decided the best reality TV outcome of this boring Snatch Game would be to put everybody in the bottom in order to keep people talking online and have at least something to gag over. And in an interesting way, I think this choice by the producers was actually a choice to not produce and let that mediocrity reign. And of course, the cherry on top here to justify this decision is that they obviously had a lip sync SmackDown planned for some time during this season. Because, spoiler alert, they certainly did not purchase the rights to air on international TV 5 or 6 new songs just because RuPaul didn't like Snatch Game performances. I have seen people talking online about how they thought the entire Snatch Game was a setup to put everybody into the bottom. But for the reasons that we discussed in this video, I don't think that was an original plan of the producers. I must admit though, there were some interesting things that happened during this Snatch Game that felt a bit off, so let's go ahead and talk through those. The first thing I noticed watching this episode was when RuPaul did his workroom walkthrough, he didn't ask anybody to change their character. This is typically something we always see RuPaul do. And during Snatch Game, RuPaul seemed more disinterested than usual. For example, both Bosco's Yannick Candle and Kombucha drink got blank stares from RuPaul, and so one of Angeria's responses as Tammy Brown, he kind of just says, "I have no idea what you said, we're moving on." And when he wasn't not engaging with these queens, he was in some cases, I think, pushing some of them a little harder than he might usually. For example, he volleyed with Willow's intro line as Drew Barrymore until she finally fell flat. And again, I'm not saying that what these queens did in the Snatch Game was funny. I'm just saying it did kind of feel like Rue really was not into what was happening, which is atypical of Rue during a Snatch Game. But did a very bland Snatch Game lead into Rue not being happy with what was happening? Or did Rue's hesitance to engage and understand some of these queens' comedy lead into a very bland Snatch Game? I guess we'll never know. But all things considered, I really don't believe in some giant conspiracy about this episode. I just think RuPaul's Drag Race wants to make the most interesting and dramatic TV as possible. And if the contestants aren't willing to or can't provide the most dramatic and interesting TV possible, then the producers are gonna look for a way to make that happen. Was it the right choice though? Let me know what y'all thought down in the comments below. This was like the 5th episode of the season without an elimination, and we are on episode 10 and still have 8 queens left. To put some perspective on that, season 8 was already at their grand finale on 10. Either way, it's no secret, this Snatch Game sucked. But is it dead? Did season 14 kill it? This cast might have mangled its body and tossed it into a river, but no, I don't think they killed it. And I certainly don't think that because of what happened in this Snatch Game, the challenge will be going anywhere in the future. However, if evaluating Snatch Game's life force on the ability of it to test a drag queen's ability to do drag, then yeah, it's dead, and it always has been. It's not even good at testing whether a queen can win Drag Race. Only 3 queens in the main series who won Snatch Game went on to win the crown of the season. Jinx, Aquaria, and Bob, by the way. Which leads me into our final question. Should we see Snatch Game again? Absolutely. Even if it tests nothing other than a queen's ability to make RuPaul laugh, the moments that we have gotten from this challenge, both amazing and amazingly cringeworthy, are worth risking it all for. And the winner is... who cares? As always, I want to say thanks to you for watching today's video. Today's video sponsor, Raid, who you can download using the link in the description of this video, and my generous patrons who make my channel possible. I also want to give a special shout out to Angel, Cyrus, Dark-Sided Otter, Dicky, Felicia, Hector Simancas, JB, Jeffrey, Joseph, Josh Marchant, JP, and Dallas, Laura, Passat, Matt, Mark James, Matthew Burns, Matthew Bauer, Maxie Lawau, Miss F, Neely, Ryan Beans, Sailor, Stephen, Tom Jaco, Tom Young, Topher, Triton, and Yeejin, who are all supporting me at my Bussy Queen Collector tier. See you later. Love ya. Bye. Just ask yourself, do you want to live in a world where Alyssa Edwards didn't have to apologize on Twitter to Katy Perry?